Well, the estate plan, everybody has an estate because a lot of people think that we're talking about you have to have millions of dollars and that's for the very rich. No, an estate plan is you've got a bank account, you've got some assets, you might have a car, you might have some other assets, you might have a few investments, you've got an estate right there. God forbid something happens to you, what's going to happen to that estate?
Welcome, everybody, back to another exciting show of the About That Water podcast, where we help you build strong financial habits. I have the awesome opportunity to bring on David Edey, who is a certified executive advisor and has been in the financial planning industry for over 35 years. He has been through the lawyer process well over 10 years, just trying to go through the will process, dealing with the sibling and all this fun stuff. We might dive into that, we might not, but we got to get down to business on what is happening to you right now. A lot of us are planning. We all know we're going to die, but we just don't know when. And the thing about it, we need to plan for that. Welcome to the stage, David. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's a pleasure to be here. We met recently at a conference, and I was intrigued. You were engaging. Actually, we met the first time was in the hotel lobby. Yep. When they were handing out hurricanes, and had one or two of those, and then stumbled back up to my room. And then we decided to. We saw each other at the conference more than once, and you were gracious enough to invite me here to be on your show, which I've watched a bunch of episodes, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the feedback. So one of the things that when I was doing my research about you, we always talk about death to some degree, but we don't really like to talk about it, especially around a dinner table or during the holidays. But what got you really into wanting to help others in this space?
Well, it came down to 10 years ago when my mom and dad passed away, 18 months between each other, both to cancer. And I say screw cancer. And at that time, being in the advisor industry for over 35 years, you figure out how to have my act together when it came to the estate planning. Parents were in my office, and they, had their wills done. And when my mom first passed away, it first came to light that there was a will, and one of my siblings, who will remain nameless, there's three of us, didn't believe that being equal was fair enough. So I ended up, once my dad passed away, to spending 7 years, 10 court appearances, and $50,000 in lawyers' fees. And like I said, they had a will, and I ended up sort of making this my crusade and mission, because every time I would talk about what I was going through, whether it would be with a client or a friend they knew I was going through, I'd hear about an executor was having a problem, a family had broken up, and it kind of hit me that there's a problem. So I didn't want people to go through what I went through, so I wrote my book during the pandemic.
Nice. Now, you mentioned executor. What is the executor?
Well, the executor is the individual that's going to be left with the responsibility to look after somebody's estate when they die. So the person that's going to be writing the will is known as the testator. Now, you need to have an executor to make sure that your estate, everything that you own, is going to be from the will. It's going to be taken care of based on your wishes. And when you're asking someone to be an executor, or if you take on the responsibility, you have to understand this is probably the biggest favor that you're going to be asked to do, because most times it takes anywhere from 100 hours or 18 to 24 months to settle someone's estate. And majority of the time, people don't have conversations with the individual for that will, or they have no idea of what to do and where to get started. And then they also have to deal with those miserable entitled beneficiaries who are only interested in get me my check. Where's my money? And they really don't know the hard work that's involved to complete the job or the estate. So an executor is a big job, but I'd step it back one further and say, for the culture, especially in the Black community, the majority of us don't have a will or an estate plan. And what usually ends up happening is that if you don't have a plan and have your own estate plan, the government has a plan for you, and they're gonna run the show, which means bank accounts are going to be frozen. Money that you might want to leave to family members isn't going to be distributed the way you want. So the first step is to have a will drawn, and most people don't do that. You'd be surprised how many people don't have a will. And that's because you said at the top about death. Most people will either avoid it, they're going to procrastinate and put it off to the future, or they take the view that, hey, I'm dead, what will it matter? But you don't do something, you're leaving your family going to be disorganized and in chaos.
Yeah, because now, because I want to get into the estate planning, but I want to bring it back to the executor just a little bit. So okay. I remember hearing that executor is just a entity, just that one person. Do they have to go out and build like a team? Because it's a lot to deal with somebody's estate. Like, who should they put on their team as like almost like the executor team?
Well, the executor, it could be one individual, or you could have co-executors. So there's strategies for both. So as an executor, again, 99% of most people who are given the job haven't a clue of what to do. So I suggest, and especially if somebody is going to leave the job to somebody, is that let them know where they could find a lawyer. You're going to need a financial advisor. You're going to need an accountant to help make sure that the taxes are paid. So the executor needs to at least have 3 professionals, because, again, like I said, 99% of most executors have no idea what to do. So you need to have, as part of your team, the lawyer, accountant, and the financial advisor to help settle the estate.
Now, should you get these people before this happens so that everybody knows who they are, or should you just wait until death comes?
No, you as the testator, the one who's writing the will, it's your estate. Mm-hmm. You would want to make a list and let them know if something was to happen as the executor. Here is who the lawyer is. Here is the accountant that you're going to contact. Here is the financial advisor that you're going to work with. As an executor, those are probably the 3 main ones. But most estates, a lot of times, especially if there's properties, you're going to have to deal with a real estate agent. You're going to have to deal with someone who's going to an auctioneer, someone who's going to sell off the assets of the house, inside the house, the contents and stuff like that. So, but the main 3 guys or ladies is the accountant, financial advisor, and the lawyer as your main team. So like I said, the testator, someone whose estate it is, make it easier on your executor to let them know that, hey, these are the people you need to contact. So what you'd want to do is, and what I suggest, is that you have a brightly colored envelope, like a bright red envelope. And you would let the executor know, hey, something was to happen, and it doesn't have to be death, but suppose you're going to be in the hospital and you've got your healthcare directives in there as well. So inside that red envelope, you're going to find the will, you're going to find the healthcare directives, you're going to find the name of the financial advisor, you're going to find the name of the accountant, and you're also going to find the name of the lawyer if someone was to pass away. Also, you should also add, and to help the executor, is put in your digital assets, which are your logins and your passwords. For every one email address, we've probably got about 130 on average identities related to that email address. So that's your YouTube, that's social media, that's Amazon, Netflix, all of those logins and passwords. If something was to happen, how do you get into a cell phone, a cell phone, a laptop, a computer, if you don't know where all the logins and passwords? So that's something the executor also is going to need to know where those are at. Again, as you're setting up your estate, you want to make those the logins and all the passwords in that safe place, along with your, like I said before, the will, healthcare directives, and the list of your professionals that you want the executor to work with.
Okay, because we mentioned as far as some of the health stuff. Now, is it important to have? I cannot think of the name of the person that can talk about the health items while you're incapacitated. So, like, say if
So you mean like a power of attorney or healthcare directives?
yes,
Well, so the majority of most people, they don't have a will, they don't have a healthcare directive. So if something was to happen, so you want to organize that and get that done. Again, it may not be your executor. You might have a family member
yeah,
to make those final decisions. Again, you're making it easier on the family. Say, oh, what does mom want? This is what she wants. Don't leave it to the family to make those decisions, because they don't know. They're going to be traumatized. They're going to be having a hard time. You can never have a meaningful conversation when they're on a respirator. So you need to prepare them in advance. And I always say that you can't, intensive care is no place to find out that there's no will. So again, it comes down to getting prepared. I don't know. Did you watch the show with Issa Rae, Insecure? Did you watch that show?
I watched that. Yep.
Okay. If you watch in the final season, you see her best friend Molly go through this with her mom and dad. She went, and her mom and dad, in the culture, they don't want to talk about death, because if they talk about death, they think it's going to happen. Spoiler alert, it's going to happen to all of us. But Molly had to push her. They had remember they had the picnic, and the mother showed her a piece of paper and said, yeah, you get the house, your brother's going to get this and stuff like that. And then what happened next couple of episodes, mother had her second or third stroke, and it was a health scare. And there's Molly sitting in the hospital with her mom. Her mother did come out, and it was sort of a wake up call, because the mother and the father then decided, yes, we need to have an estate plan. They went and, saw a lawyer and got everything. And again, it's, as much as people don't want to talk about it, it's going to happen. So, try and make it easier on your family, and don't leave them disorganized and in chaos.
Now, as far as it comes to the health side of the house, is it okay to go ahead on and start having those conversations with your primary care physician to kind of start talking about, like, what are the commonalities, or what should be the things that I kind of have inside my plan?
You might, but that would be more when you're meeting with the lawyer to have those discussions and say, because he's going to have they're going to have a set amount of questions when it comes to healthcare directives. Do you want to be kept alive artificially? Do you want to do not resuscitate? All of those things will be what the estate planning lawyer will do in the healthcare directive section. So it's not so much the primary care individual. You might bring it up and say, I have a particular health situation, and let the estate planning lawyer know that when you're drawing it up. But it's more the legal side of, what's going to happen if something was to happen.
Okay. And so I want to zoom out just a little bit, because I was asking a couple people just at work, somebody, I would call them the younger folks. They like maybe just hitting 21, 20, 22. And I asked them, like, have you guys ever heard of estate planning? And it was like, what's that? So can you just kind of take it back a little bit? Just what is the definition of estate planning, and what is included in estate planning?
Well, the estate plan, everybody has an estate, because a lot of people think that we're talking about you have to have millions of dollars, and that's for the very rich. No, an estate plan is, you've got a bank account, you've got some assets, you might have a car, you might have some other assets, you might have a few investments. You've got an estate right there. God forbid something happens to you, what's going to happen to that estate? Like I said, if you haven't got a plan, the government, the state has a plan for you, and it's not going to go the way that you think it's going to go. You might say, oh, everybody knows that this was going to, I've left, my CDs, my CD amount, of $5,000 or $1,000. It's going to go to my brother. No, it's not. It's going to be broken up based on the laws of the state that you're in. So you're dying intestate. So again, you're making it easier on your family to have a basic will. If you don't have a lot of assets, but you do have assets, because everybody has assets. You've got a bank account, like I said, you've got a few investments or whatever. Even with those a little amount of assets, you don't have to go to a lawyer. There are a lot of online solutions where you can just put together a basic will to make sure that everything takes care of. Again, you might think, well, it's only for the rich to do the estate planning. But a lot of, celebrities in the community, Chadwick Boswick, he died without a will. You had the gentleman that was the rap group, Migos.
Oh, Migos, yeah.
Migos. Is he the one that was that passed away?
Yeah, it was one of them that passed away.
Yeah. So the gentleman, young man, he passed away. The estate's worth over $26 million, and there's no will. So now we've got the family fighting over it. So you might have just because someone has a lot of money, you might think that, yeah, they're taking care of it, and they're going to have an estate plan, but they don't. Aretha Franklin, they just settled her estate. She had 5 different handwritten wills. Right. Which is not advisable. So the family again had to go to court, and they went with the will that was found in between the cushions in the sofa. That's the will that they went with. Again, you think with all the money she has, she would figure it out. It's not so much how much money you have; it's the thought process that you're thinking. Well, I'm not going to die, or this is something I'm just going to put off to the future. Spoiler alert: it's going to happen to all of us. You just want to make sure that you put yourself in a situation that you don't leave your family lost and, like I say before, disorganized and in chaos.
Right, because we keep talking about wills, and you had your mom had a will, but you had to fight. Right. Why did you have to fight if there was already a will?
Because the one thing that my parents didn't do, they didn't have a conversation with all 3 of us. Of the 3, 2 of us knew there was a will. The third one, again, let her remain nameless. Because we, since that time, which was in 2011, the 3 of us haven't spent the holidays together because the family's broken. And it didn't have to be that way. My parents didn't have the conversation with us and say, you know what? Our assets are going to be split 3 ways. This is what we want, and we don't want any fights. And all it takes is for one person to contest the will, and the next thing you know, you're going to court. Whether it's right or wrong, you still end up in court, because when people become beneficiaries of an inheritance, some people get greedy. They feel entitled. You really don't know about somebody until you have to share an inheritance with them, because you would think, wait a second, who is this person? They're fighting over it. And the other reason I ended up probably writing the book is I remember sitting in court, and here it was. We had a judge and we had lawyers on 2 sides, and we had my sister and 2 of us on one side and the other one on the other side. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, my mom and dad have to be spinning in their graves that I don't remember seeing any of these people at the table at Christmas time. Who are these people making the decision on the assets of my parents? Okay. But this is a problem that happens a lot. With families, the courts are filled with people fighting over houses and money and businesses because their families didn't have the conversations. They didn't get organized. And that's where we end up with the problem.
So how do you start that conversation as a child to bring it up to your parents? Because a lot, like you said, in the culture, we don't.
Well, it can go 2 ways. If you see that your parents are slowing down, you might say, hey, Mom, Dad, I heard this great guy on about that wallet. He had this guest on, and he was talking about wills, and that made us go out and think, hey, we should go get a will. We've got our will now, and we're organized. Mom, Dad, what have you done? So that might start the conversation. Or, the parents might decide they can see that, and that's what stops a lot of parents also from doing anything, because they don't want to upset the apple cart. They know that there's going to be problems in the family. Every family thinks that they're perfect, but you and I know every family's got issues.
Yes.
Right? There's always one, and there's going to be a problem. So that's what will hold back a lot of parents from doing anything, because they know there's going to be a problem. But this is probably the biggest gift of love that you could give your family, is to be organized, and so that you don't leave them lost. So you might say, hey, we've done our will. We want to get things organized. I remember a client, they're Catherine and Robert, and what was holding them back for the longest time is that they were afraid of the family conflict. They didn't have any executor organized, and they knew there was going to be communication problems, but they were concerned about, they wanted to be remembered, but they wanted to be remembered for what they did and not do. So they said, no, this is the time that we're going to start to get organized, have the conversations, get our will done, and then prepare our executor, and then we're going to have the conversation with the family so that there's no misunderstandings, and it'll make things a lot easier. My biggest problem, or the problem in our family, was my parents didn't have the conversation with us.
Is it ever too late to start your estate planning?
Never. Again, as soon as you know that you have an estate, and you might not think you have a estate, but you've got a bank account and you got some assets, it's never too late to start, because you're going to, as your life changes, so should your estate plan. It should evolve with you. It's going to be an ongoing document, which you're going to change a couple of times before you leave this earth.
Is it too early to start?
Never.
Okay. Same reasons?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And we know that wills is just one part of it. And also wills are public, so they also are searchable. But you also have trusts. So would it be best to say, like, hey, in the will, all the money goes to the trust, and then, or the assets or whatever goes to the trust, and then the trust will disperse it from that point forward?
You could do that, but that's going to come back in the conversation that you're going to have with the estate planning lawyer, with the lawyer, to make decision what makes sense. I can only talk from 30,000 feet up, because everybody's different. A lot of times people will have trusts because they want to be able to control the money from the grave. So again, once you know the family dynamics, sorry?
So that's one way of looking at it.
It's the only way I look at it. It's because the trust is its own entity. It's doing its own thing. Who set up that trust? Mom or dad? And they're saying, you only get a certain amount or whatever. So you want to have those conversations with a lawyer. And again, it'll depend on the amount of assets you have. Again, if you just have a few assets and you don't think it's going to be a problem, by all means do the online solution. But even if it's going to cost you a couple of $100 or close to $1,000 to get it done by a professional, a lawyer, then it's going to save your family hundreds and thousands of dollars in court costs, going to court, lawyers' fees, and at the end of the day, that the family doesn't break up.
Yeah,
I have two brothers that don't talk to each other because of Royal Dalton China. The mother had left Royal Dalton China to one son's wife. They're clearing out the house. The brother says, you know what? I really like that Royal Dalton China to give to your niece. The brother says, you know what? Go talk to my wife. Mom says she wanted her to have it. He goes over and talks to her. She says, your mom wanted me to have this. I'm going to keep it. Brother comes back to the other brother, says, I don't know if I can use this. He says, you know what? Your wife's a bitch. I don't have anything to do with you. So 25 years later, today, they're still not talking over Royal Dalton China. Again, no conversations. And it comes back to, as beneficiaries, you don't know about somebody until you have to share an inheritance with them. And you would figure, really, we're not going to talk anymore because of Royal Dalton China? They're not. These are grown men now in their 60s, not talking because of Royal Dalton China.
Wow. So in other words, folks, make sure you get everything ironed out and properly placed. Because one of the things that I know we're talking from sky level at this point, and obviously the individual, we're not talking about if you're married or single and so forth. All those dynamics will come into play. However, if you have children, or even if you want to leave things with your mom, one of the things that I didn't know about this until I was just researching like bank accounts and how to leave, quote unquote, a legacy here.
Right.
Is that some banks actually offer a POD or a TOD, which is like a transfer on death or a paid on death. If they have the same bank account, they can actually transfer that over to that person with the same bank account because it's a lot faster.
A joint, yes, absolutely. So these are some of the things that you want to, as the testator, the person who's setting up the estate, that you want to make sure that even the bank accounts, because sometimes I had a friend, she was asked to be executor, but she didn't take on the job because she said, again, using the language, she said she didn't want to be part of the shit show. Because she knew her uncle, and she knew the uncle had passed away, made her executor, and she turned it down because there was a bank account, joint bank account, that the son and the father had access to, and it was almost a part of the estate. And the son was using it to pay for the dad and his at the retirement home that he was living at. When he passed away, that money was, the father was gone, but the son still had access to it. But the son didn't have to bring it into the estate. So we've got an extra 100 grand, 150 off to the side that the son has, even though there's another 300,000 or 400,000 on the other side that he's splitting with his sister. So he's taking the 3 or 4, his half, but he's keeping what's on the other. So they ended up going to court, but by law, he doesn't have to bring that into the estate.
That's true. Yeah. So, I mean, it helps out a lot. And plus the estate taxes. I mean, I know this isn't a tax show. That's a whole nother session.
Well, as the executor, because we were asking, looking at the issues, the executor has to make sure that the taxes are paid, because as executor, you're also on hook personally for the estate, the administration. So you want to make sure the taxes are paid. So I always suggest, and I write in the book, you don't pay out anything to anybody until all of the taxes are paid, and the probate court, it says that everything is clear. Because suppose you pay out $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 to a bunch of beneficiaries, and then you find out, hey, I got to pay, I owe another $75,000, $80,000, $90,000 in taxes. Good luck trying to collect that money from the beneficiaries you already scratched the checks to. So no, I always say nobody gets paid until the taxes and everything else, the debts have been covered, and then what's left over will go to the beneficiaries.
Perfect.
Which is a problem for beneficiaries. Like I said, they're only interested in when am I getting paid? What's taking so long? So as an executor, you need to make sure that you keep them in the loop, have conversations with them, Zoom calls, emails, every couple of weeks. Keep in touch, because it doesn't take long for you to not say anything, and then the beneficiaries are looking at you sideways, and they don't think twice and want to drag you into court.
Yeah, because I was thinking about when you mentioned probate. So when it comes to probate court, there was a documentary on Netflix called Dirty Money, but it was a sub series episode in there called Guardians, and just people showing up to say like, oh yeah, I'm the third cousin of so and so. I could take over their estate. Is that something? How can you avoid that?
Well, when you say that, that's the exact example of what happened with Prince. Prince died without a will. So then they had all of these people showing up saying that I'm a brother, I'm a half brother. Then they had to get into DNA tests. Also, DMX died without a will as well. Same thing. People started coming up saying, so the problem stems from there's no proper estate plan in place. There's no will. It doesn't name out who the beneficiaries are. You can't come and say I'm a half brother or something like that and make a claim unless you're named in the will. If you're not named in the will, then we don't have any conversations, especially if you're the executor. Don't come to me and say, well, I'm a cousin. Is your name on this will anywhere here? Are you a beneficiary? No. Then get to stepping. Bye. So that's what you have to do. So it comes down to make sure that you have a will, especially people come out like cockroaches. They'll come out of nowhere, come into claim, especially if there's no will, and they'll say, I'm related to some of that. So the easiest thing, again, you're putting the burden all on the executor. Make sure that it's organized. And if you don't have a will, at some point, everything's going to go into testate. People are going to come out and say, hey, I'm a beneficiary, but then it takes time before the courts will name an administrator or an executor. So that's going to drag it out even more. So, that's, which is the problem, like for the rapper. They didn't have any, so then they have to bring in, the court has to find somebody, and then again, you've got people fighting over dollars, which they probably are not entitled to.
So, okay, now we coming down to almost like the futures, which is what I'm really want to change this a little bit, because I want to focus on the people who are listening right now, because this is an important topic. What are the 3 things that somebody needs to do right now in order to protect themselves, their family, going forward at every stage of this process?
Well, we'll start with, say you're a single parent, okay? I had a friend of mine, I even talk about it in the book. They got organized because they remembered that when they passed, when their parents had passed, the father had passed away, mother had passed away years earlier. When the father had passed away, her and her brother, in the church, in the funeral home parking lot, one aunt took her and an uncle took her brother, and that always stayed with her. So now, as a single person, she said she didn't want to go through that, because with her father dying without a will, what ended up happening is that every time they needed money, they had to go to the court for the court to, because again, now the court's in charge of the finances. So if they need money for school or activities, stuff like that, her aunt had to go to court all the time to get some money. So as a single person, you want to ensure that you take care of your children's their future. So you want to have a solid plan. So first, what's important is the financial well-being. So you want to find a guardian who got your shared values. And then, even though we're talking about estate planning, it's not really that morbid, but it's a way to make sure you're kind of a superhero for your loved ones when you can't be there. And especially, you've picked someone to look after your kids. Now, if you're a newlywed, you're into buying a house, thinking about kids, but you're going to find comfort by doing the estate planning, knowing that you're prepared for whatever life's going to throw your way. So as you go on in life, your estate plan is not static, it's going to evolve. So as things change, you bought your house, you've got the will. Now you've got kids, you want to add, you got to update the will. You're going to have grandkids, you're going to update the will. So you want to, again, your estate plan is always going to be evolving. Even someone people don't even think about when it comes to evolving. I had a friend of mine, he went through a divorce, tough time, but then he forgot to update his beneficiaries. And then his estate got all tangled up because he passed away, and the ex-wife got something. So there was a whole lot of problems. So again, it's not a static plan. When your life changes, you have to update the plan as well. So, and another thing is, if you're a business owner, it's important to have an estate plan, but you also need to have a succession plan. What's going to happen if your business is what brings in, brings money into the household? You need to make sure that if you're not there, there's only one of 3 things that are going to happen to the business. You're either going to shut it down, you're going to give it to somebody else, or you're going to sell it. But you have to make arrangements within the succession plan of what you want to happen to the business. So, I mean, I'm giving you a bunch of scenarios. Everybody is touched by it because everybody's going to be going through different things in their life. But understand that estate planning is not just about preparing for the end. It's also about enhancing and enjoying the journey and leaving a lasting impact, because it's all about leaving a legacy. And, you need to prepare. And a legacy is not just about the stuff you leave behind and the money, and that's fine. It's also about how do you want to leave the people that you made an impact in their lives, and you want to continue to make an impact in life. So it's deciding on what kind of legacy you want to leave behind. Yep.
And my legacy is this podcast. So that's where we at.
Okay. So then don't leave a mess.
Right.
Okay. Okay. We've established what your legacy is. Now don't leave a mess.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So
are you prepared? I want to get in your business, but are you preparing? Are you taking notes?
Well, this one, yes, I've been taking notes throughout this whole episode because I do want to make sure that I have this thing in line before I depart or transition on to the next level.
Right. Okay.
From the
So
spiritual.
so you and your wife, you're getting organized. You want to make sure you don't want to leave her because statistically, you and I aren't going to be here. Your wives, our wives are going to be behind. So just statistically.
Statistically, right. So you ready for the final 4 questions?
Sure.
Number 1, what does wealth mean to you?
Well, wealth is 2 things. It's the material thing to do whatever you'd like with the most important people in your life. And then the other wealth is to that I can pass on that legacy and whatever I've accumulated in life, that it's going to go on to the next generation. I've got my son, and now I've got a new granddaughter, Penelope, or I also call her P-Baby. So she's the next generation. She's a year and a half old. And that's what I think about. That's the wealth. I've been blessed in so many ways. I've had some health scares. I've had open heart triple bypass surgery. Actually, due to this whole nonsense that I went through, the stress in between court cases, I ended up having triple heart bypass surgery. So that's the wealth, what I've accumulated, in business. But the wealth is what I can pass on to P-Baby.
Nice. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
Going to court for 7 years, 10 court appearances, and spending $50,000.
Wow. Number 3.
Actually, you know what? It might have been cheaper to get a hitman, but I didn't say that out loud. Sorry. I can't say that. Sorry. That was my inside voice. Sorry.
Number 3. What is your favorite financial or non-financial book?
There's a book, one of the all-time best personal finance books by a Canadian named David Chilton. Sold over 13 million books, The Wealthy Barber.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get more basic than that to start with. I'm fortunate to know, actually, I know David from the time that book came out. I used to do local radio, and I remember when the book was, he had hundreds of it, thousands of it in his garage, and he was just getting started. So if you want to, your listeners and about that wallet, it's basic. And the people that you talk to, The Wealthy Barber is the best book to get started.
All right.
And my book, sorry.
Oh, of course you gotta get your book. Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
Wow. It's a good question because I liked it. I love Italian food, been to Italy. So there's so many choices. Any dish that's made in Italy, because I've gone to Italy. Because when you go to Italy, you eat like a champion. It's never. You ever been to Italy?
No,
buddy. You will. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. Anything that you eat down in New Orleans, because
that's true.
What? Because New Orleans was off the chain, and then that was my second time when I met you at the conference, but I had been there a couple of years before, and New Orleans. Go eat in New Orleans. Yeah.
Okay. And the very last question, which is, where could people find out more about you?
You can go to davidedey.com. So that's DAVIDEDEY.com, davidedey.com. And on there, I've got sample chapters of the book. You can buy the book. I've also got a lot of resources, free resources, the checklist. If you're going to be an executor, all the things that you need to know, you can download those and put that in with the will that you're going to be responsible with, or your state, or if you're preparing your estate, and I've got it for U.S. Citizens and Canadian citizens. I got a checklist there. There's tons of stuff. If you want to ask questions, there's a link to my podcast, Executor Help. There's a whole plethora of stuff. See that big word I just used? Plethora. There's a plethora of stuff that you could find on there.
Yeah, because some people pronounce it plethora.
Is it? So we're gonna go back and forth now with grammar?
Oh no, we're not. No, I'm just saying because.
Okay. Are you correcting me? Really?
No,
actually, you know what?
It's tomato. You know, like how.
No, but it's your show. I'm sorry. My bad. I'm sorry. It's your show. I shouldn't have. I didn't mean to jump on you like that. I thought it was on my show. Never mind. Continue. Go ahead.
You know, David, it was awesome having you on the show. Fun conversation as always.
Anthony, this was a great time. Anytime you want me to come back and talk about the exciting subject about death and dying, please, you know where to find me.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, everybody. So make sure you go out and get his book called The Executor Help: How to Settle an Estate, Pick an Executor, and Avoid avoid family fights.
And avoid family fights, yes.
And avoid family fights.
You want me to say it again for you, or are you good?
I'm good. We go roll.
Okay. All right.
Just go to the website, okay? DavidEdey.com.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right there. Right in the front.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right,
this was so much fun. This was a lot of fun. You're a good guy.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Y'all be safe. Out. Peace.